Hello, lovelies. Welcome to the premiere episode of the We'll See workshop. A lot of times I get asked about the pronunciation of my last name, and/or Sarah gets asked about both of her last names, Beaudry Wiltsey. And it's spelled W-I-L-T-S-E, and you could emphasize the T as in Wiltsey. But an easy way for people to remember how it's pronounced is we'll see. We'll see. And that's kind of the theme of today's adventures, is to figure stuff out. We'll see. We'll see what goes on. Today is Thursday and not Wednesday, because how great would it have been to start the We'll See workshop on a Wednesday? That would have been wonderful. Right? See how I did the W's? But it didn't work out. And that's okay, because it's 2020, and if we can do it at all, that's moving in the right direction, right? And I get that the camera's a little bit crooked. I had the tripod set up, and then it wasn't where I wanted it, and so on and so forth. My thinking behind this is to share a bit of the wisdom that Sarah and I have accumulated, especially over this last year. 2020 has been a major learning curve for us. But more than that, to create a library where this wisdom is available. Many things we explored this year, and one of them was off-grid or emergency backup power, sustainability, stuff like that. And to that end, I have been spending the last week or so retrofitting our camper that we purchased to help house a friend of ours earlier, like basically through end of 2019 into this year, into November. And I've been retrofitting it to be more energy efficient. Currently, I've got the propane heater turned off, and you may be able to hear the fan for the inverter running in the background. If you hear a hum, I'm not really sure how it's going to show up in here. I meant to grab my Bluetooth headphones, but I left those in the house. But the general idea is, and I put the notes on that phone there, so I'm just going to have to do my best to go by memory. Hey, Amanda. Welcome to the We'll See workshop. Feel free to ask any questions in the chat there, and I'll get to them as we go. So the eightfold power project is what I'm tending to focus on here. I have an opportunity to actually consult Rocky Mountain Power on how to use their green spaces. So kind of a big deal, kind of cool stuff brewing. But I need to seriously expand my education and my functionality with that education. Those of you that have been clients of mine will remember ERM, which is education, application, reapplication, and then mastery. And I'm nowhere near mastery on a lot of these things. I have a general idea of the education, and I'm really in the application and reapplication process right now. But just some simple things. The Eightfold Power Project has to do with solar, wind, MicroHydro, gas, propane gas, so two different kinds of gas, DC and AC, and then there's another one in there. And solar can be passive solar, using solar thermodynamics, or it can be using photovoltaics to use solar energy to create electrical energy. And we don't have any. Today is before the big snowstorm. Naturally, yesterday we had a pretty good sun profile, and I was going to show you how cool it is that not only are we using the energy and we're going off the sun, and best laid plans of mice and men, right? So what I do have, and I'll go ahead and pan around, and again, I'm doing the camera work to the best of my ability, so bear with me. Let's go ahead and swap this camera around. You can see the rest of the digs here. Ooh, fancy shelving. But I'm just trying to do a steady cam here. So this little light here is a goal 0 light. It's running off of the DC outlet way over there. This is my powerhouse. This is a DeWalt 1000-watt workstation, or whatever they call it. Use it to jump the truck and a bunch of other vehicles. Got some tools hanging out in the corner there. And this particular rat's nest, and here, if you can see all of that, that's basically the powerhouse. The fridge is running off of DC power right now, and it's actually, well, you may not be able to tell at first glance, or maybe you're like super tuned in and know all this stuff already, is that I'm running the whole camper right now, lights, well, mostly lights, because the propane heater is just too loud when it kicks on. But I'm running the DC into an inverter, and all of these cords are plugged in to that inverter, and that's what's powering the camper right now. And just a little tidbit, we're at 40 watts. 40 watts because these are all LED bulbs. So 40 watts based on this setup should last us about 6 hours. So if I was just sitting in here with the lights on off of that little battery and no solar recharge, because it's gloomy and going to be stormy today, then we could get 6 hours of light just off of this current setup. Now we can get even more of that because of the Goal Zero only uses 5 watts, and it's very bright. I mean, I actually used it as the main light so that you guys don't get a bunch of shadows on my face, even though they're still happening, and I've got to sort out all the lights to figure out why and whatever else. It was on my list of things to do yesterday, and grand schemes. At any rate, but this power project is meant to share and show that these goals and dreams of being, whether you want to be off-grid completely. Some people really want to be off-grid. Sarah and I actually do urban homesteading, wherein we are fairly centrally located within the city. We prefer a quieter street. We prefer more land. But we're not opposed to society and civilization in general just yet. We may be trending that way eventually, but we're not currently there. So we like being able to have our groceries and food delivered, and go see a movie and other things. But we are very big into emergency preparedness. As we got this camper, it was really to support another friend of ours. But then there's also the possibility of camping in it, using it as a demonstration unit. There's lots of possibilities here, but only if it's sustainable to do so. And then also the gardens that I usually run during the summer are mostly mothballed right now. They're mostly harvested, and the soil's resting, and the rest of those things. So there's going to be plenty more where all that came from. And it's bugging me, I can't remember that last one. I wonder, I mean, this is the first video, so if it's a little wonky, then we can mess with it. But I wonder a thing, and if it messes the whole thing up, then that's my lesson learned. So I'm looking at this. So I think it paused the thing for you, which is fine, because you don't have to see me going wee-wee on the screen and squinting at it and whatever else to see it. So I did a note on this so that I would remember it, and then I used the other phone, not thinking about it, whatever. So wood gas is the other one. So what a lot of people aren't necessarily aware of is that there's a thing called a gasifier, and I'm going to build one or buy one. Probably build one, or buy one. I don't know. Depends. I don't have a welding kit, and I don't know any welders to put it together for me. So maybe I'll buy one. At any rate, when you have a fire, like in your fire pit, you're only using about 20 to 30% of the fuel and the heat that's available in that setting. Most of the energy is actually coming off of the fire in the form of wood gas. What you can do is you can actually run that wood gas through a condenser. You can pressurize it, and you can actually run stuff similar to what you would run off of propane. Pretty cool stuff. So that's the eighth part to it. So we're going to be exploring those things. There'll be this one's an inside one. There'll be plenty of outside ones that we're doing, and kind of my goal. And I tried to go up on YouTube directly with this. It didn't go. I wanted to be able to turn the camera around so that you guys could see kind of some of the setup and some of the different things we're going to do. So this worked well for that. As I mentioned, I meant to do this directly onto YouTube. We do have a YouTube channel, and I'll share the link in the description on this if it stays up. Otherwise, I'll just route it through there, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to save this at the end of things. So the general idea is, based on my studies so far, I know how to run stuff off of AC power. That's the easy one. A lot of things are set up to AC. I'm learning how to set up things to DC power, and with DC power comes solar. And with solar power, you've got the passive solar, which is just using the radiant energy from the sun to heat things up and cool things down if you do a heat pump and things like that. But also photovoltaics, which is turning the UVA, UVB rays, I believe it is, into into an electrical current, so that you can use it to charge your DC battery, for instance. And then your DC battery can run your AC appliances like it's doing right now. And then there's the propane. I was talking to Sarah earlier. They've got a propane generator that has a pure sine wave inverter. And a pure sine wave inverter is, if you have more sensitive electronics, it gives it a cleaner electricity signal, so that it doesn't burn out as easy and doesn't have different faults. Usually a surge protector, which all this is run through a surge protector, usually a surge protector helps take out some of those fluctuations, but stuff happens, right? And then with what was cool, do I have any? They're on the other side of the table. I can demonstrate with the non-physical model. So what was cool is I was looking. Oh, I do have one over here. I was looking online as I started researching this stuff, and obviously like Cyber Monday and whatnot. And Ryobi is the power tools we've got. And whatever your opinions are about different power tools, I've got DeWalt, I've got Makita, I've got Ryobi. You get to know is that a lot of these tools were gifted. Some of them are purchased straight out. And the reason I went Ryobi, if you have a particular opinion about that, is because it's inexpensive, and I don't use them a lot. This time of year I use them more, but I don't use them enough to wear them out. I'm not a professional handyman or craftsman or anything like that. I'm fairly handy, and that's one of the things that I do to bring in income, but I don't need a massive setup. But one of the things that, as I'm doing this, and I got into, is whoops, sorry, I bumped you there. And since you're bumped, I'm gonna go for it. I'm gonna grab me a battery. A second here. Hey, Maddie. Boom. Perfect. Now you're all crooked and everything. Part of the reason I label this the We'll See Workshop is we'll see what the camera work and whatnot looks like too. So this here is a Ryobi. This is a 4 hour 18 volt or 4 amp hour 18 volt lithium ion. Is it lithium ion? Well, they're calling this one lithium plus. So there's a lot of different battery tech out there, but going with what I had, because I've already invested a couple $100 into the Ryobi system, I was wondering, how do I turn this battery into a usable form of energy to power this camper? Sure enough, this is a Ryobi inverter that goes right here on top of the battery and makes you a little battery powered inverter kit. Turns it into 120 volt AC with 1.25 amp and 150 watt output. If you don't know volts and amps and wattage and the rest of that, that's fine. I didn't know about it either. And that's a big part of what I was learning. I was like, okay, they're talking watts, they're talking amps, they're talking volts. What in the world are we doing here? So as near as I can understand it. And again, beginner's guide, this is the basics from me to you. 18 volts is the type of power that it puts out. This is an 18 volt DC. I also have, I've got a 4 volt DC from Ryobi. I don't have a way to put that into an inverter, but I've got some tools that run off of it. I've got the 18 volt DC from Ryobi. I've got the 40 volt DC from Ryobi, and this is the 40 volt inverter. Now the 40 volt, I was so jazzed when this tech came out. I was like, oh yeah, this is great. Because it's, I mean, comparatively, let's just do battery size comparison. Comparatively, you got this battery versus this battery. See the size between the two? And these are both 4 amp hour, but this one's putting out 40 volts over that 4 amp hour period. And this one is putting out 18 volts. Now again, lots of different volts and wattage and whatever else. Just remember, it's the type of energy it's putting out. It's backwards to me. Hopefully it shows up right ways for you guys. But this is the 40 volt lithium. So there's, oh, maybe it says here. So this is a lithium ion. Doesn't give me any more information than that. And this one is also a lithium ion. Oh, cool. I didn't see that. Neat. So, by comparison, this is 144 watt hours in this battery, and this is 72 watt hours. So, this is essentially double this, but also 40 volts, which means that if you can convert this into electricity at 12 volt, versus this into electricity at 12 volt, which is what this stuff runs off of. It's what the inverter runs off of. And that's a whole nother thing. So see, we're talking 40 volt down to 12 volt, blah, blah, blah. Essentially what it means is this battery is going to run everything for less time than this battery. And both of these batteries are going to run it for less time than the, it's not a car battery, but it kind of looks like a car battery that's up in there. If I took the battery from my truck, it would run everything for a whole lot longer because it's a much bigger battery and it's used to deep cycling and everything else. The DeWalt that I showed you earlier is actually rated at 1,000 watts, and it's got a pretty decent sized battery in it, but I don't. It's very heavy, so I don't have a way to put it here on this table. The table needs some work too. I don't know if you can hear it squeaking. We went on a bumpy road and the whole thing came undone, so I got to put it back together. At any rate, but these are some of the things the Will See project, or the Will See workshop, the Eightfold Power project. We're gonna be covering these things because I feel that, like, I felt so much. Oops, this one got beat up a little bit. I felt so much joy when I found out that this could go to this, and I could pull power out of this for my phones. Got the USB, it's got a little light on it just for funsies. Maybe. Hang on. You know, when you're doing videos, sometimes demonstration Doesn't work? Oh, I have to turn it on first. Do we? Interesting. So now the inverter is telling me it's having issues. Lessons learned. But then there's a light on it. Interesting. Well, I might have fried this one. It happens when you're testing components. I'm going to send it back and get me a new one. They told me this is like $30 cheaper now. I thought it was only $30 to begin with. At any rate, you get the USB, you get the AC, and you can run quite a bit of things off of this. Kind of miffed this isn't working because I just barely got it. But it's supposed to be able to handle the fault and then turn itself back on. I'm fixating a little bit. I'm on tinker. Oh, now it wants to work. Sometimes I couldn't see. Green light. So green light means woohoo, flashlight. Because you need a flashlight. It's a fun little work light. It's not super bright, like shining on my face. But then you can use this to power your AC and your USB stuff. There's this USB-C tech that's out now, and it can send a lot more wattage through the line. But when I found out that I could actually use these, being clever, I can use these to recharge these. So if I've got a bunch of these batteries and no way to recharge them, and they've got a full charge, but I need the charge for these to run my rototiller, my weed eater, my big blower on the 40 volt, I can actually transfer the power from this battery to that battery using a series of inverters and chargers and whatnot. Oh my. But the general context is that this gives me a bunch of freedom, but it also upcycles a bunch of my different materials so that, for instance, if I'm out cutting wood, because I do fires and stuff, if I'm out cutting wood and my truck battery dies, and wouldn't you know it, dagnabbit, my DeWalt jump starter battery dies too. Okay, so I got a dead truck battery and a dead jump starter battery. I'm stranded. Or not, because I've got this inverter with me and I can transfer the power from these batteries into that big old battery on that, jumpstart my truck, and get home. Just one of the scenarios. Again, am I going to need it all the time? Probably not. Am I even going to need it most of the time? Probably not. But the peace of mind that I can now take the energy from these different batteries and move it around from one to the other. I could even, on the current setup, I can run the propane heater in here so I can have a safe heated space. I can't run the microwave off of this inverter. It's not big enough. But I can run the fridge and the heat so I can keep my drinks and my food at a good temperature, and I can keep the living space at a comfortable temperature as well. Especially necessary when you've got meats or other things that can spoil readily. Also, when it's super cold out here, you're dealing with freezing temperatures, which may not be the frequency that you want to be storing your food at. Like, you don't want to put lettuce or whatever else out in freezing or sub-freezing temps. And I checked earlier, and we're just at freezing. We're like 32 degrees outside, but I'm sitting here comfy at 50, and I've had the heater off the whole time for this video. I think that's about it for now. I'm gonna label this and do all the different things to it, and do bear with me as I'm I'm not a professional editor, and I'm pretty much the only one doing these for now. Sarah's doing her stuff through Instagram and Facebook, and then we're transferring over to the YouTube channel. But I feel pretty good about this. I'm kind of excited about this. I watch a lot of channels, and they've got some really good content. One of my favorites. Well, let me just list off some of my favorites, and maybe I'll put links to them in the description. I love Matt's off-road trucking. I've learned a lot about recoveries and how to drive around in sand, and they even do stuff about fabrication on these vehicles. I learned a lot through that channel. It's also been really fun to watch it grow. What's another one? Hobo Tech, Professor Hobo. He's major part of where I've got my education from regarding solar, DC, AC, wattages, the rest of these things. I didn't get into that. Well, maybe I'll save that for the power that we're doing in the channels. So Professor Hobo, he runs a bunch of really cool discounts. He's got a bunch of affiliate programs going on, and he's just a fun dude. Has a camper, goes around an ATV, and just kind of cool dude. Who else? Outdoor Gear Review. The Outdoor Gear Review. I love watching his camping and survival excursions. He does overlanding and things like that. And I watch a lot of the Australian guys that do the off-roading, and they talk about their solar setups. Now, they're much more rough with their setups. I mean, these guys are going into places where the only road in is a 4x4 road, and you get stuck, and you gotta either wait for somebody else to come by, which doesn't happen very often, or you hopefully brought a crew with you. But they go into solar panels and the different setups, like the fridges and stuff that can run off of DC these days. It's crazy. Like this fridge here is a Dometic for an RV, and I thought it was super cool because it can run off of propane and a little bit of DC power. Or it can run straight off of the alternating current, basically the house current. And it's, compared to those, incredibly inefficient. And also, bulky and all these other things. So, but there's a lot of cool tech out there. And that's kind of the vibe I want to create on the YouTube channel is that there's all this cool tech. There's all this cool stuff to learn. Like back in early 1900s, like we're talking like 1950s at the latest, people were effectively using wood gas. And it was very common knowledge, and there's all sorts of patents and everything else on wood gas. Because people were using wood primarily and coal primarily as a fuel, and you can from that harvest again more fuel from the wood gas and generate a much more clean emissions because you're cycling that back through. Stuff like this is like, I mean, we're nearly 100 years ago, this tech, and even longer than that. I mean, gasifier tech's been around since late 1800s. And so people have this tendency to think that, well, if it's old tech, it's not as good as the new tech. But the real truth is that the new tech can make the old tech even more efficient, and it can turn things like waste wood into biochar for your garden, so you can grow your vegetables better. Like all these other cool things are possible, but that's what we're really going to explore in this. So please, hit like on the thing. I'm not exactly sure how all the YouTube stuff works, But I'm pretty sure if you like a video, it gives more sharing, like it shares the channel more. And if you subscribe, if you aren't already, then you'll get to know about these, and I think that also boosts the stats. I would like to see this channel grow. I'm really grateful for the 15 or so subscribers we have right now. And it's, I was using this for something else entirely, kind of like my personal broadcast station. But now with Sarah in my life, we have a lot of wisdom to share on canning and preservation and gardening and greenhouses and green spaces. We're putting in a sauna and some cold frames here over the next week or so. So, like, all this cool stuff is going on, and I usually just broadcast it out to Facebook, but we're wanting to consolidate it. We're wanting to make it more permanent, and like where you can find this information better, because people are coming to us all the time, and they're like, "Hey, how do you can your vegetables? Like, what's the whole process?" Like, I didn't know that until Sarah showed me how to do it, and I still need quite a bit of coaching on it. But luckily, there's like the carry canner, the electric canner. There's these other different things like Instapots and whatever else that make cooking and canning and preservation more accessible. But then there's also like, how do you know how to build your soil and things like that? I'm running a course on biochar. That's going to be available after the new year. And I'm doing videos on it, putting it into stores so that people can have these resources for their gardens that are going to be nurturing and growing their food next year. That's been a big deal. People are wanting to get into food sustainability. Power sustainability is another one. We had a windstorm come through this year, and it knocked out the power for our neighbors. One of the gals in the co-op, she actually was without power for 2 weeks in her house. So no refrigeration, no heat, no cooling, no water because her water runs off an electric pump. It was pretty messy. Luckily, she was taken care of. But like, what would you do in that scenario if you had no power, if you had no gas, if you had no water for a couple of weeks? Not that I'm presencing that, and not that I really think that that's like, yeah, that's going to happen. The whole thing's shutting down. It's the end of the world as we know it. Apocalypse and now kind of thing. May or may not happen, but I want to know that we are comfortable and sustainable and doing well. So hopefully this is beneficial to you. Again, any questions, comments, put them down in the comments. I think it's comments down there. And yeah, I only just had my morning coffee, but I wanted to get this out there. And then from Facebook, I got to go over to YouTube, and we'll see how it all pans out. But eventually, I want to put like titles on here, like type in like "We'll See Workshop," right? Like I love Professor Hobo's stuff because it's very entertaining. His personality comes through on it. But I was like, okay, I've got some information to share. I've got some wisdom to share now. Power generation is one of those things. I'm doing pretty good at using power that's generated. Mostly AC power, but I've also harvested some solar power. That's what this battery that's running all these lights throughout this whole thing is on. I charged it from solar panels. And I've got solar panels outside right now. And, yep, it's not bright enough. We got a storm. We got apparently like 4 inches of snow coming. So it's not bright enough to light things up there. But that's where we're at. I feel good about this first video getting out there. For me, it's just important to get it out there, and then editing and the rest of that can happen later. if it does. If not, then I did my best. So hopefully it's informative. Hopefully it's practical application of stuff. And I would love for like question and answer. Another cool thing that happens is people send me stuff to review, or that's a possibility. Professor Hobo, Outdoor Gear Review, a bunch of these other channels are sent these different things to test out and review. Like with our Ryobi here, it's like, okay, well, I don't know. See, it's saying it doesn't want to come on again, right? That's a red light. Why is that happening? Like, what's going on there? I don't know, but I got to return the inverter. So just things to look at in that regard, right? But it would be fun to test out fun little tools. Like there's this little cheap multi-tool or it's basically a multi-tool. It's not a set of pliers, but it's got a knife I need to go sharpen, and a couple of little bottle openers and whatnot. It's just fun little things to have, and in smaller spaces like this, you don't want to cram it full of tools. So possibilities, right? So okay, I tripped myself out there. I thought the water heater was turned on. I need food and I need some more coffee, it seems. So thank you all. Namaste and blessings. And yeah, thanks for playing along in the We'll See workshop. Peace.